you please raise your right hand and repeat after me?
I do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office
of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability,
support and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Voting is a fundamental part of our democracy. It's far more complicated and cumbersome than most realize. The voting system as we know it today is decades old, but at the end of the day, it's what keeps our government working. Where this started was a desire to create a voting experience that has the ability to measure up to the significance of voting. And I think what we're going to do here is take that to a whole nother level. As always, I'm really excited to be here. We're on the home stretch of this major milestone in the project. And you all are the reason for that, because of the people that we've brought together to make sure that we get this right. Anyone who looks into the background of IDEO will see that their history has shown that they've mastered this human-centered design part. They've got a proven model, and I think it was a great fit for this project.
What we're doing in Los Angeles County is incredibly revolutionary, and Dean is taking a major risk. And the risk isn't like that he's doing something wild and dangerous. The risk is that he's doing something radical to improve a fundamental part of our democratic system.
So there are no two elections that are alike. So I think in that sense they are messy, but I don't think they have to be as messy as they are today. I think that we have waited longer than we probably should have to try and design a system that fits more with the way things work in the modern world. As so many things in the public sector work, oftentimes you don't see those revolutions until there's a problem. And that started back in 2000 with the Bush v. Gore election. There was this rush to change the voting system then. I would argue that rush happened too fast, that nobody took the time to step back and look at it as a holistic problem. They looked at it solely as an equipment or a technology problem. What we're trying to do with this project is step back from that and say, wow, we have a shot here to do it and do it right.
Are you ready to print your ballot? This is your last chance to go back and make any changes.
What's been great about this project is that we have really pushed ourselves to free ourselves of the constraints of the current regulatory environment, the current technical environment, and the current, even the current fiscal environment, and say, let's wipe off all of that from the table, and first let's figure out what a good experience ought to look like. Then we can go back and figure out what do we need to change in terms of regulations, what do we need in terms of funding, and what kind of technology do we need to make that happen.
In a lot of products you're designing for most users. For this voting machine, we're designing for all voters. And when you take a human-centered approach, that clarifies a lot, because you know that what you're first trying to do is make the experience work for humans. And once you know what humans want to do, that clarifies what the technical approach should be. And in certain cases where we need to push back on policy because policy is at odds with what voters actually want.
When we started this project, we started with about 42 hours of interviews with subject matter experts from all over Los Angeles, and they talked to us about all of the regulations that we would have to comply with in order to design a voting system. And we made a list of 868 design issues that we would have to be in compliance with, design constraints. We honestly thought there is no feasible way to get through all of the constraints of this project. Some of them are going to have to fall by the wayside, some community is going to lose.
Yeah, let's try a little bit bigger. You're doing really well. This is exactly why we're here, because we need to learn about what needs to be bigger.
We spent a lot of time with people who are living with really severe cerebral palsy, so very little fine motor and gross motor skills. And what was the most easy thing for them to use to vote? A touchscreen. So we found all of these moments where the same tool worked for incredibly disparate communities, and one simple, easy design actually made the whole thing more delightful for everyone.
When you take the needs of somebody who has access challenges and you figure out a solution to make voting easier for them, oftentimes that also makes voting easier for everybody. One of the things I think that is different about this project is that we were focusing very closely on certain types of users whose access challenges were not well served by the typical way that you would approach with the touchscreen voting. And we put a lot of effort into making an experience that works great for them.
Is it very important for me to vote? Absolutely. If we don't vote or exercise our democratic muscle, it's going to atrophy. So, challenges. Can I get in here? Maybe. Excuse me. Pardon me. Do you have Inca vote?
Accessibility, I think, is probably the best example, because people with multiple types of disabilities are all going to be able to vote, not on some special piece of equipment where they have to go to a separate corner of the polling place and vote and kind of be on display themselves, but they can go to any device, and that device will adapt to the individual needs of that voter. And I think that's going to fundamentally change voting.
When people go to vote, they don't expect the situation to be perfect. They don't expect it to be like Disneyland, but they do expect to see that our voting machine and our voting system has been sensitive enough to consider some of the really simple human truths about Los Angeles. You know, for example, it should be multilingual like Angelinos are. It should fit people of all sizes like Angelinos are. It should work for someone who's 18, it should work for someone who is 118. And so a lot of the ways that we learned how to design the system wasn't by designing something that was perfect for everyone, but something that respected the basic human nature of every person who's going to come into the center. And I think that people really recognize when you've taken the time to design something for them.
We're trying to do this in a manner that results in a publicly owned, publicly operated system. Nobody's done that in the voting environment before. Most voting systems are proprietary, privately owned companies that sell voting equipment for profit. We're trying to break that mold. We're trying to do this in a way that expands that market rather than shrinking it.
One of the fundamental principles of our project was designing for modularity. And what that means is that each part of the voting system can be taken out and replaced with a new part. And the goal of that is to create a world in which we don't have to fear technological growth. In fact, we have the opportunity to swap things out for better things, for more affordable things, for more effective things as they come into the market, and we're assuming they will.
We also have designed into this the ability for you to access your sample ballot on a mobile device and to interact with that before the act of voting. So if you want to begin reviewing the ballot, get familiar with what's on it, pre-mark it in a way similar to the way you might check in for a flight and get a boarding pass electronically, you can do that as well. Take that with you when you go in to vote, scan it in, and then that'll get you an expedited voting experience.
Just thinking about the individuals I know who have always wanted to vote in person and have never been able to really know that they're going to have a way to do that and to have a private vote where they can be independent and not have to ask for help. I think it's amazing.
The thing that this new system makes possible is voting centers. And actually, voting centers might be the more important innovation.
The big change here is that we associate voting today with a random Tuesday between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. Voters want choice. They want the ability to go to a location they choose to vote that's convenient to them, that's comfortable for them. So instead of 4.8 million voters going each to a single location, now those 4.8 million voters can go to one of several hundred locations that are located throughout the county over a period of several days. Yeah, I think there is a lot of pressure on this project. There are a lot of people waiting to see what happens here. You know, it's a process that should always be improved, so I don't think you ever get to the ultimate solution, and I think I like that. I like the challenge of that, of how can we make it better, how can we continue to respond to the needs of voters, and be sure that everyone has the opportunity for their voice to be heard.